everyone, I just wanted to share this video with you. I was asked a little while ago about how I store my Kaszazz rubber stamps. So just showing you how they come when you purchase them. So they come in these Ziploc bags, sometimes a little bit tight, and they're usually what they call cut apart stamps. So you can see there's a bunch of different sentiments on there, and what you have to do is peel off the back and cut them into the different sentiments, and those rubber stamps stick to a stamping block. So that's kind of how they work, and I didn't cut them to show you just because it does take a little bit of time. So that's how they come when you purchase them, and you can see all the different sentiments that are on there. And obviously when I buy mine, I do cut them apart, but then I don't like the fact that you can't see them quite clearly. So this is the method that I use when I purchase them and cut them, is I actually stamp them onto a piece of paper. I cut them apart and trim them quite close to the stamp as possible, otherwise you end up with sort of ink on the edges of the stamp. And I stamp them onto a piece of paper and I actually laminate them. So I run a whole bunch of pieces of paper through my laminator, and then I trim them out. So I'll do like a batch at a time, and then I put them back in the Ziploc bag, and the image faces on the opposite side to the sticker, so the description's on one side of the bag and the image is on the other. So regardless of which way I pick up the bag, I've got a rough idea of the stamps that are inside there. So this method worked quite well until I got myself too many stamps. So at the moment I'm storing a lot of these little bags in a container. I think it's like a 9-litre container or something like that. But it's not working for me anymore because the container's full and it takes me forever to rummage through. So I've been toying with the idea of changing the way that I store the stamps. So rather than having individually stamped images, what I'm looking at is turning them into A4 pages. So kind of grouping the stamps into different categories, and then putting them all onto an A4 page. So for this category, which is my backgrounds and borders category, at this stage I only have one A4 page worth of stamps, but there would be some categories that I have where there's more than one page, and that way I'll stamp up just a couple of pages. So you can see what I've done here is I've stamped the background and borders that I have, and what I'm doing now is laminating that whole A4 sheet together. So this is a new method that I'm trialing, and I've got a couple of different ideas about how I might store this sheet, and so I'm going to show you both of those today. So I'm just running that through the laminator, and while that happens I'm just going to work on the tab for each of the categories. So my first thought is to put it in this folder here, and basically if I open up the folder you'll see that I've already had a go at adding my circles. So these are all my circle shaped stamps, and I've stamped them all, laminated them and stuck the stamps to the opposite side of the laminate, and then put a little tab on there which says circles, so you can see that there. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to make the tab for the next sheet that I'm doing, or the next category, and I've got these matte sticky labels, and chose matte ones rather than glossy because I don't really have any textures that write well on glossy or that dry quickly. Now the actual label is a bit skinnier than the punch, but that doesn't matter as long as you center it. It just means you won't have as much of a punched edge. So I'm just writing on that label backgrounds and borders, and then I'm going to stick all of my stamps onto the opposite side of that A4 laminated sheet, and going to stick my tab on there as well. So just turning that laminator off and moving it off to the side. And for the purposes of this video, I'm only doing one, but if I was going to do this, I'd probably laminate a whole bunch at once. But it does get messy because I've got all those stamps all over my desk at the moment. So I've got a hole punch that's got the measures on it, so I definitely recommend that. Otherwise you should measure, otherwise what you'll find is that your laminated sheets will be up and down and all over the place. You want them to be quite even, because the sheet underneath, so the one that I've punched all the circles on, will be the protector sheet for the stamps on the next page. So I've put a blank laminated page at the back of the folder, because when I stored them before, I did have clear laminated plastic on the opposite side of the stamps. So the stamps always have a piece of plastic at the front and a piece of plastic at the back, just protecting it. So I'm just sticking that tab down now. So just placing the tab just above the circle one so that you can clearly see all of the tabs that are there. And I do have cardstock, and I thought about sticking cardstock on as tabs with double-sided tape, but decided that the stickers would probably hold better. I find that the double-sided tape does tend to, when you knock it about a bit, it does tend to fall off, whereas two sides of sticker stuck to itself was a better option. So just now sticking those stamps through on that sheet, and what I find is that you can see the stamp slightly through it, so you don't really need to worry about marking out on the other side where things are, that sort of thing, because it's already coming through that paper. I'm just using A4 printer paper to stamp on. Then I'm also using archival ink in black, but you could use any ink that you like. And the images that I stamped aren't perfect, I have to admit. There are some bits missing, or I didn't quite ink the stamp up well, or for one of the border stamps I actually rolled it a little bit, so there was a bit of a double image there. But it doesn't really have to be perfect, as long as you know which stamps they are. That's sort of the easiest way. So you can see, just flicking through the tabs there, I should be able to find what I'm looking for, and this folder should fit a fair few of those sheets as well. So I'm just having trouble sticking that down. It's one of my older stamps, and I think it's losing its cling at the back, and so I really should make an effort to stick it down properly so that it does stay on there. So this was my first idea, and I purchased these folders to do this in particular. And I'm not quite sure if I'm going to go ahead with this or not. I've got a couple of folders that I bought it for, and you can see there's some labels, spaces on the front, so you can write which ones are on there. But my other idea is to actually use these clear A4 cases, and I do have a few of these as well. And I think, yeah, I'm not quite sure which way I'm going to go yet, but the potential is to use these A4 cases, and I'm going to pull these out of the folder and show you what I mean. So it'd still be exactly the same process. You probably wouldn't need to punch your holes if that's the case, and I will go ahead and use the ones that I've already done if I go with the A4 case, but I probably wouldn't punch any more holes if I decide to go that way. But you still have your tabs there so that you can access your stamps quite quickly, and then you fit a bunch in there. Like, I've only got 2, but I'd easily be able to fit, probably 5 or 6 sheets in there at least. And the other thing about these A4 cases is they stack really well, and you can label them as well, so you can put a whole bunch of labels. So you can see this is my container full of Kaszazz stamps, and I've got loads and loads of them. So getting them organised is going to be really important, because now the system that I have is just not working anymore for the amount of stamps that I own. So yeah, this is where I'm just sort of saying you can add some labels to the end so that it makes it quite clear. You could stand them on their side and stack them on top of each other. So I'll keep you updated as to which way I go, but I'm going to have a play around with both and see how I best use them. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, give it a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more.